Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Fatmata here from Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Art, and today I have a video full of finished makes. If you're someone who likes to see like the finished garments, let's just get to it. This is a video for you because it's chock full of them. Beginning with what I am wearing. This is my hacked version of S9451. I had said in my fall plans video that I really was interested in making myself a knee-length navy dress. I had this crinkle rayon in my stash that I picked up at the dead stock section at G Street Fabrics and wanted to whip it up. It did not go as planned. I remember like on the cusp of finishing this dress, just got so mad at it and I was not pleased. I don't know if my feelings are changing about it. I told myself, let me just wear it for the video today, see how I like it. It might grow on me, but I wanted to make use of the entire length of fabric that I had because I didn't have too much fabric. And I went ahead and laid out the pattern piece away from the center fold as I was cutting this out so that I have so much more gathering up here. If you can take a look at the line drawings here or the photo of the model, while there is intended to be some gathering, mine definitely has way more than the pattern intended because again, I wanted to make use of having all of the fabric. I have it worn here with jeans today, but super flowy. I tried to cut out the arms as long as I could get it, and that's as much as the fabric would allow me to because I cut out the sleeves second to last and then did the neckline. In the back there, I'm really having a hard time with the back. That's the part that made me angry the most. The collar, I was able to finesse it for the purposes of this video, but the collar gave me the hardest time, and it's a feature of this pattern that I love the most. I love the way that it like rolls over. So this is it just standing up. It's cut on the bias. And then it's supposed to, you know, like roll over upon itself nicely. And of course, because you're here, it's going to go ahead and act right. But just know that I struggled with this. Anyway, I'm wearing it for the video today. It might grow on me, but it's just, you see this? I don't like what it's doing. I don't like the way that it lays down in the back. I considered finding a really short zipper and then putting that in the back. We'll revisit this. Because I knew that this was going to be a shorter length dress, I think my choice of fabric for this particular project was just wrong. And because I didn't add any gathered tiers or ruffles or anything like that, I think this really lightweight floaty rayon is not to be blamed. It's just living its life doing the things that it was meant to do. And I'm expecting it to be something that it's not, right? Which is something that would be a bit more weighty, a bit more meaty for the fall and winter, and it just isn't that. So instead, I'm just gonna think of this as a proof of concept. I think that it could work. I'll try styling it in the ways that I intended to style this knee-length navy dress. And I've gone ahead in my stash and picked out two fabrics that I think initially I was just too afraid to seek out. And one of them is this incredible fabric. It, I believe, is some sort of like possibly a rayon twill. It has the most incredible drape, but is also so weighty, like in the best way possible. Anyways, I love this fabric. It feels like it has some sort of nylon content to it because it sort of like has a bit of a slip to it. It doesn't catch on itself. And I think that would be excellent for something that I plan to wear in the fall winter, where I'm often going to be wearing it with tights and high boots. So I really think that this probably is the fabric that I should have gone with to begin with. Secondly, I got this, or I have this other fabric in my stash. I have less of it, but it is a really nice, it feels like a suiting weight fabric. And I really enjoy it. It has just a little bit of stretch to it. It doesn't have any stretch to it. Okay. It's okay. It's gorgeous. It's not as blue as this one is. So this is it's a midnight blue, but it's definitely, you could tell it's navy. This is a bit deeper of a color and maybe not as blue as I would want it to be. It's also only 1.5 yards. I picked both of these up in the dead stock section at G Street Fabrics. So I'll see. All right, now I know the make that you are most excited about is a robe. Okay, the kids' robes, and I use Simplicity pattern S1572. Honestly, I can't recall if I picked this up in the drawers at Joann's or if I thrifted this pattern. 1572 sounds like a very old number, but I do know that there are patterns like this that are still just in the drawers if you flip through the top section. So for those of you who might be making gifts around the holiday season and things like that, could be something that you look into. I will just say this pattern runs large. My kids are 4 and 5, and I ended up cutting out for them a size 3 with the length of a size 4 and ended up doing the deepest of hems. So it's definitely going to be something that they will just have to grow into, but that is how I prefer to sew for my kids anyway. For my daughter, if you watched my previous video, you know that we were working with this gorgeous Halloween kitty fabric that she picked out herself at Joann's, and it was a journey. It was such a journey. So things that I ended up modifying. Look at this hood, y'all. The fact that there is a hood on here at all is amazing. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different pieces of fabric that have been patchworked together to create this hood. Luckily, because it's a fuzzy furry fabric, you can't see, but do you notice all those seam lines? And luckily also, because the print is so busy, I don't who's gonna know? How will they know? There's a seam over there too. There are seams everywhere, okay, in the hood. But I was so determined to make this work for her because by golly, I was gonna. And I am beyond proud of my finessing skills and that I didn't let it get to me. I also went ahead, because there were going to be so many seams on the inside, since I had to patchwork all of those pieces of offcuts from the raglan sleeve, there were shreds of fluff left when I was done making this project. Every piece of that 1 yard from the remnant section was utilized. So what I had to do then was, or what I wanted to do for her, was go ahead and give her a lining inside of the hood here. So I use this polyester satiny jacquard fabric that I had already in the sewing room so that it's really nice and slippery on her hair too. So I felt like that was also a win, protect her little tresses. And I was able to cut this out, in the way that the pattern piece would want you to. I did go ahead and trace out this pattern for them again because it goes all the way up to a size 6. So I had cut out the size 6, but then when I sort of held it up to their bodies and saw how huge it was, my kids are slender, they're long, but they're slender. So I went ahead and traced out the size 3 with the lengths of a size 4. Anyway, so this pattern piece right here, this hood, gave me a run for my money. For my daughters as well, something that I just had to omit altogether was the facing. So this pattern does come with a facing piece that would connect. And I just, again, I lost. I did not have enough fabric to do that. I had considered, using a black piece of fabric, using some other fabric that I had in my stash. And then I couldn't quite figure out, how necessary is it? What's the facing for? So what I ended up doing instead, I had some bias binding in a really, really nice light pink color that sort of went with the pink in the fabric. And I just bias bound the front hem. I also bias bound the neck edge there all along the hood and serged everything else on the inside. So that's how I went about completing it. I do notice that hers is quite different than my son's, where his kind of will hold itself up. Hers does like to flap open. So I do think that there is a reason why the pattern drafters put that facing in there. I will admit that, but I don't think it's something that is a big enough deal that I'm gonna go back and undo what I did. Okay. Also in the hood, I added ribbing to the edge there, and I cut it just like a smidge shorter than the actual, you know, than the length of the front of the hood. And I did that because I figured that might give it a bit more like shrinkage, like make it fit her head a little bit better. And I think it works out really well. So I'm glad that I added that. I also added ribbing to the cuff, mainly because the edge of the fabric that I ended up using was the bottom bit of the fabric that has like the Joanne, exclusively made for Joanne. And while this is something that she's just gonna wear at home, I was like, I don't need to do baby girl like that. I did include it so that I could have the length, but then in the end, I just went ahead and added this really nice cuff. Also, for little kids, when their hands are in everything, when they go to use the restroom, when they're eating, I can imagine my kids are gonna just wear this to do all sorts of loungy things. And their hands just get into everything. So I felt like having a cuff was actually much better for my kids than not. So after I did it to my daughters, I also did it to my sons. The ties on the robe are tacked in the back, which I really did appreciate that they also included in the pattern. It has 2 pockets. She really appreciated that.
It fits.
Does it fit? And I put a hat on it.
Perfect. But Mommy,
Yeah.
You forgot about the pockets.
Oh, it's not all the way done yet. I just wanted to see if it fits, to see where we should hem it. Okay, hold on.
There are they.
There they are.
There they are. I need some pockets.
When I had her try this on, she was like, where are my pockets? And I was like, girl, they're cut out. Just relax. We're getting to it. Another boo-boo that I made in the cutting of this was that I accidentally, for like no reason that I can understand, ended up cutting the back as 2 pieces. I had forgotten to draw that arrow that sort of designates that you should place this pattern piece on the fold. I forgot to draw that in on my traced out pattern. It slipped my mind. I cut it out in 2 pieces. We just seamed that up on the overlocker. And that's just what that was. So the final thing is the hem that I gave this girl. It's about a 4 or 5 inch hem. I forget how much. I added that same bias binding to the hem and then stitched on top of that with the widest stitch length, 4.8. And I did that mainly because I can actually see the stitching on the bias binding, whereas on the fluffy side, it's like sunken in there. So the idea is hopefully the body of this, the size of it, they will fit for some time because it is still quite roomy on them. But if I need to let down the hem to like lengthen it for them as they grow, then I'll just unpick it from the inside where I have the stitching a bit more visible and accessible, since it's a cotton bias binding and it's a lot easier to unpick. So I'm really happy that I thought ahead and did that. Then for my son's robe, oh, look at this buffalo check. Look at the matching. Okay. And I made this out of the fluffiest faux Sherpa fabric from Joann's. We had the same problema with the hood. My goodness, this thing just did not love me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 pieces were patched together to make this hood. And even though it is a very noticeable print, like this check, honestly, I can't say that I hate it. It's so fluffy and all of the seams just sort of like absorb each other. You'll be none the wiser. I did, however, line his with another faux Sherpa that I had. It's a different kind of red, but it works. So what I did was I was able to patch together enough of the remnant fabrics of the buffalo check side to cut out this shape in full. And then I folded over at the fold line that they have here and then cut out the like burgundy, we'll call it burgundy, faux Sherpa this way with that fold line sort of tucked behind it. And that way I knew that it would pull it in. So if you can see, you have like that 1 inch of the buffalo check sort of pulled in to the lining piece. So that worked out really well. I added the black cuffing to my son's as well for the same reasons that I just explained for my daughter. And his is the same size, a size 3 with the length of a 4, but I gave him a shallower hem. He's much taller. So his hem I think is about maybe 2.5 inches. So I did not use the bias binding method that I talked about, but if I ever need to, like it's gonna have to be a need. If I ever need to lengthen it, I will go in and sort of take my time and unpick it. Let's hope that's years away. But they have been wearing their robes. I did have enough to actually do the facing on my sons, and I'm glad that I did. I did the same treatment here by adding that bias binding along the neck edge, and I think it just makes it a bit more comfortable without having like the serging right on their necks. So that was really good. So those are the 2 robes I really enjoyed making. S1572. It was nice. I did a bit of unpicking, and because it was on the hanger, I'll just say this is a blouse, a shirt that I have had for years. I got it at Ann Taylor, and I was mentioning in a previous video that the cuffs and the collar were just worse for wears over the years. It just got so stained, and I knew that I needed to replace them if I was going to wear them, and I don't think that they were in a good enough condition to like donate in that state. So I'm really happy that I took the time. So I've unpicked everything. I'll just have to find the motivation at some point to like cut out new cuffs, new collar, and see about stitching that together. But that's the first step done. Now let's get into the other makes. I had the blue serger thread and the blue thread in as I was making this garment. And from there, I went ahead and finished a bias cut skirt that, my goodness, I have been meaning to get to for so long and didn't. So I was trying out McCall's 8796. I had thrifted this pattern some time ago, and I was working on view A. It is the classic sort of bias cut slip skirt. And I cut out a size 16 because that is the largest size in this pack. It goes from a 12 to a 16. And that size was meant to fit over my hips, because the finished garment measurements for skirt A at the size 16 was 44 inches, and that's my hip measurement. So I figured let me go with that. But my waist to hip ratio is never exact. I always have to size down, usually 2 sizes to make that work. But I went ahead and cut a straight size 16, and it was large, unsurprisingly. But I went ahead and completed it. The thing that it was awaiting, initially I had a regular facing in there, the one that the pattern calls for, and that was not going to work. What I wanted to use instead was elastic in the waistband as the facing, if you will, off of a recommendation from Whitney from Tomcat Stitchery. And I'm really happy that I went with that. I was able to kind of cut this soft waistband elastic, which is 1.5 inches. I tied it around my waist, got to a comfy fit. So basically like my waist measurement, maybe minus an inch or minus 1.5 inches, just so it really would snap to me. And that worked out great. So then I put it right sides together on the front of the skirt. stretched the fabric as I sewed it around. And now I have a really, really comfy waistband on the inside. My hook and eye closure, which I recently did as well. It is big on me at the top, but honestly, I could see myself wearing this with like a really nice chunky sweater that would sort of billow over top of it. And I don't think it's going to be as noticeable. I French seamed this. I mean, it's 2 seams and it's a bias cut skirt. I wanted it to look really nice and lovely. So that's often how I do a lot of my bias cut things. I did recognize that I was having the same issues that I had with my first bias cut garment, which I'll show you in a second, the Sicily slip dress. I had the same issues where like the side was bunching up. And I think I have finally worked out what I've been doing wrong. When folks have been saying use a narrow zigzag stitch, I think I was making it narrow side to side, but wasn't adding enough length going down. Like it's really, really tight, which I think was bunching it up too much. So I've lengthened also the stitch. What are the words? The stitch length, right? Like how much it moves the fabric, and shortened the stitch width, how far it goes side to side. I hope that makes sense, but I did not unpick the French seams in this one. I just sort of like tugged at the fabric and pulled it so that it would stop bunching up. I did hear a couple of like snaps, but because it's French seamed and I know that there's like 2 layers of stitching, I'm not worried about it. If it begins to fray, we will talk about it, but I wasn't going to let that faze me. I did a narrow rolled hem at the bottom edge there to just give it a clean finish. I mean, it's a beautiful bias cut skirt. This was a fabric that I had picked up at the dead stock section at G Street. It's a like really, really small, what I think of as like autumnal floral. It has teal as its primary color with some browns, tans, and a splash of this little like pink. So it's cute and I can't wait to finally be able to wear it. Then I had mentioned the Sicily slip dress in this fabric that I absolutely adore. I picked up this fabric at G Street and have tried to make something out of it twice times. Both times these garments have had to be gifted to someone else. I plan to give this to my sister, but I finished like fixing it and I actually do fit into it. But honestly, the amount of things that I would need to do to make this wearable for me, put it on a turtleneck, high boots, and all the things, it's like, is it worth it? No. It's knee length on me, knee length-ish. I had to level off the hem because, again, I think I had stretched out. Something didn't go right with sewing this together the first time I tried it. I sized it down. I think this is now possibly a size B. I think the Sicily slip dress is done in letters. I haven't looked at the pattern pieces in so long. I made this dress back in February of 2022, last year. But I haven't looked at the pattern pieces since then. I legitimately was just looking at what was wrong with the garment that I have in hand and just sort of made it work. So I cut out the French seams in this Sicily slip dress because that's where all the problems were. I tried out that new sort of longer stitch length, shorter stitch width, I think zigzag stitch here, and then I just went ahead and serged the edges. I was not going to bother with doing a French seam on this at this point, and I am much happier with it. I made sure that the fabric, like I just listened to what the fabric wanted to do as it was stretching. I allowed it to stretch, and when I got to the end, it was completely unleveled, and then I went ahead and leveled it, did a narrow rolled hem at the bottom as well, and finished it off easy peasy. So I, in the past, was trying to do every single thing right. I watched tons of videos on how to sew with garments on the bias and, don't move it too much, and make sure, like, I think even in the Sicily slip dress pattern instructions, I remember, haven't revisited it in over a year, but I remember it saying something about like sewing it from the bottom up instead. And I remember doing that and then had all of this excess fabric on like one of the sides that I was trying to make it fit in, and then ended up with the waviest seams on both sides and was so disappointed. Anyways, the front cowl still does something really funky on me. I don't know if it's just my bust size. I don't know what it is about how I cut it, what happened there, but I'm like, is this how it's supposed to drape? I don't know if it's the fabric. Maybe if I had a lighter fabric, would it do something differently? I don't know. Anyways, I'm just happy that it is now a successful garment in and of itself and can actually be gifted now. Yeah. My Sicily slip dress. I think if I were to make the Sicily or any sort of slip dress again, I would just want it to be longer. I like the idea of it. I like the bias cut nature of it. I would love to have one that works for me, even though that would mean most likely me having to layer it. But I think I'm going to have to like get the right one, and that's not it. Then I had taken out a bunch of black garments that I'd shown you all that I wanted to like fix, finish, and finesse. This one is S9451. It is this little top here, and this is a hacked version. With this fabric, I wanted to try something interesting. I wanted to use as much of the fabric as possible, so I did this like asymmetric cut here. I made this last fall, so I'll try and link to the video because I go into a bit more detail about how I laid out the pattern pieces on the fabric and all of that. But what I did this weekend was to hem the sleeves. So I rolled it over twice and then zigzag stitched that down, which turned out really nicely. I had never sort of finished off the front asymmetric bit, so I serged it, rolled it over twice, stitched that down. It's hard to see, it's black, and that just, it's finished and it looks polished and I love it. And then I also stitched down the neck sort of facing that it has here. The neck facing is meant to be interfaced. I didn't interface mine at all. It's supposed to have like, I think, stretch interfacing in there. I didn't do that, and I interfaced it with, I just like used the fabric itself as the facing piece, but I went ahead and stitched that down because I hated the way that it flopped in and out. But I do think I get away with it on this black. I don't think it's as noticeable. I still think that there's a lot of excess fabric right under the arm near the bust where you have the ruching at the side seams. So if I ever revisit this pattern, that's something that I'm going to try and figure out how to remove some way. But I paired this with another garment that I sort of fixed up this weekend and absolutely love it. And that pattern that I'm talking about that I paired it with is none other than Simplicity 8655. So Simplicity 8655 is a Mimi G pattern. I did view B, and that is sort of like the slim leg here. I did not add those patch pockets to the back, but this, I remember sewing this up in an evening. I cut out the pattern piece. I think I cut out the fabric, and I sewed it in an evening. And I remember in the video being like, how much easier could this get? Because I was using this faux leather fabric, and I had to be so careful because I was afraid of getting heat on it and all of these different things. And yet I still was able to do it in an evening, from cutting out the pattern to the fabric to sewing it up. And I was just marveled by that. Anyway, this initially, even though the fabric itself has a decent amount of stretch to it, I had inserted a woven facing that was interfaced. and it just was not comfortable. And I wanted to try out my new trick where I use the sort of soft elastic, the 1.5-inch soft elastic as the facing, quote unquote, and I was able to do that. So it helps because now it will move with the fabric yet still have that stability to kind of hold the trousers, the pants to me, and I much prefer that. I prefer that much more. I tacked down this one in 3 different places because it has that center and front seam, and the side seam I went ahead and tacked it in those places, so I find that it flips out a lot less. I'm really happy with this. I also finished off the ends there. Someone had mentioned, hey, why don't you just put some like seam tape and do that? So that's what I did. So it's a really nice finished edge there. The inside of this fabric is like a micro fleece, and it is so comfy and soft. So I think I will enjoy wearing this in the cool months ahead. Something that I wanted to also state was that I used the infamous peel and stick fabric fuse that I had used earlier this year, that I purchased thinking that this was like the wanted to use it in the same way that you would use like quilter's tape that would just hold things in place and that you're allowed to sew over. And this directly on here, it tells you, it says don't sew with this. And I did. I sewed right on top of it. I think I messed up like 2 to 3 needles. I messed up a zipper. I'm going to show you the make that I used it on that just botched and did not go well. But guess what, friends? This permanent adhesive, this fabric fuse was made for this purpose right here, you all. It's made for this moment. So I used it to make the seams flat because I didn't like how they were just sort of flopping about. So for the center front, this is the center front here, I went ahead and put that seam tape right in the seam allowance, stuck it down, and applied heat. Yes, I did. I put some cotton right on top of that and put some heat to it because I wanted to make sure it would really stay. And I think that bad boy is staying really nice. I did it all along both side seams as well, all the way down to the bottom. And I did it to the center back as well. I did these for about, 7 or so inches and then let it go because obviously it needs to sort of be, like it has to go under like the crotch seam curve. I didn't want to mess with that too much, but I just wanted it to be flat where it'd be on my stomach and on my back, because this pattern sits 2 inches above the natural waistline, so there is quite a bit of height and length there. So I was very pleased with that, and I'm happy with the finishing there. Because I went ahead and applied that heat, I think it lays down really nice and flat. Another thing that I did, I remember when I was making these trousers, I had graded out at the hip because it's something that I'm so used to doing all the time. And I have to remind myself that the way my hip is curved, concave curve, it curves in, has the peak, and then comes out. Whereas when I am grading between sizes, I often make a convex curve, like, okay, like this, like parentheses, okay? And that's not the shape of my hip. That might be the shape of Beyonce's hip, but it's not the shape of my hip. My hip dips and then comes out, right? So know thyself. I just need to stop grading out in that way and figure out a new method to my madness. But I had done that to the extent that it was so, like, I had the elephant ears on the side and I was wondering, why do I have so many wrinkles? I was trying to understand, like, what is this trying to tell me? What sort of fit issues am I having here? So I went ahead and just like cut out that wedge. I'll insert a photo of what that looked like. I marked it out in white so you guys could see. So I really just graded that back in. Again, this fabric has stretch, like it will stretch in the places that it needs to. I didn't need to necessarily build that into the extent that I did. Very happy with how that worked out. It was so much better, and it's a better fit for me. So it was just a note to self, and I'll try and remember that for this particular pattern again, because I will most likely be making these trousers with something that has a little bit of stretch because of how fitted it's meant to be. Those are all the changes, and it's like having a new pair of trousers because I actually never have worn these out since I made them last fall. So it'll be nice to get some wears out of them this season. Then I want to talk to you about my refashions with B6705. This is a butterick pattern that I know has a special place in my heart. I made a half and half dress, I think 2 years ago, last year, that I absolutely love. I think it was 2 years ago. I love that dress and wanted to revisit this last year. So I think it was in December, maybe. I made a dress out of it, out of this black fabric. It has sort of like this wood grain or tiger or some sort of print on it. And I wanted to love it so much. I wore it only once after making it. For whatever reason, I just was not in love with it. I didn't like the fit. I just couldn't really see where I was going to wear it to. So recently I shared with you all that I was thinking, could I turn that into a skirt? So I did, and here it is. I took out the zipper. That was the first thing I needed to do. And then I sort of laid the dress out, and I'll insert some photos here. Found a point near the waistline that I was happy with and just cut that thing right off. I wanted to keep the top piece because I could see myself doing another make right there. Isn't it cute? But I did want to go ahead and have the skirt portion for on its own. I also then cut off the very bottom of the skirt. I knew that I wanted to add some sort of gathered panel to it, a gathered tier. So I needed to remove a bit of the length because this on me when it was in dress form was midi length, like just approaching my ankle. So I wasn't going to add a ruffle at that length. So I believe I took off about 11 inches from the bottom all the way around. And I just used my quilter's ruler and kind of went slowly because it was A-line. It curved at the bottom, so I couldn't just cut it straight across. I just needed to like take my time and move the ruler and make sure I was at 11 inches all the way around. Cut that piece off, which then was donated to the top portion. We'll get to that in a second. But with the remaining fabric that I had, I think the length of the fabric, which was about 56 or 58 or so inches wide. And I had about 36 inches long. Well, that's a yard, right? Something like that, I think. And then what I ended up doing was cutting that piece in half so that I had an 18-inch width. Again, the length of the fabric, two of them, combined them together, and then gathered that down to fit the bottom of the skirt there. I love it. It comes up as more full length on me, but I actually don't mind that. I'm very happy with it. I did the same thing by adding that soft elastic waistband on the inside. I appreciate that this is black on black. I don't know if you'll see it, but it just like sort of helps to hold it in a little bit. Again, I measured the elastic on myself and then just gathered the fabric in to meet it. And I think it worked out well. Because I had done the other projects first, I didn't have enough elastic to go all the way around. So if you can see here, I cut what is equivalent to about 5 inches. And I just attached that to the elastic and then attached the elastic to the skirt as sort of like it's facing. And I tacked it down at the two sides. So it's a bit, more flappy in the front, if you can see that. But again, when it's on the body, it just sits so beautifully and I love it. It's long. I think I will get so much more wear out of this as a skirt and as a separate than I ever did as a dress. So this is what I ended up doing with the top half. I'm so excited about it. So I went ahead and, like I said, cut it at the bodice line, like almost at the waistline. This also, when I laid it out flat, had sort of like a dip in the front. So I leveled that off. And because I had cut off the bottom of the skirt, it was enough to really do some beautiful gathering and add that to the midriff little panel there. So it really looks like a darling peplum. I hope that this is all coming across on screen. I know this is black, so it might be harder to see. I had thought about doing something additional with the sleeves, but right now it sort of hits, like it stops, sort of like how this is almost bracelet length. It's sort of like that, but it's the same exact length as where the peplum hits, and I kind of like it, so I think I'm going to leave it. I did end up using a bit of a shorter zipper there, so this is, I think, an 18-inch zipper, and I made sure that it went sort of below the waistline seam, so it ends down into the peplum. And it's not an invisible zip. I just went ahead and top stitched it down and had to sort of re-stitch the neck band on there. I really do hope that I get more wears out of this, because it was sad not really wearing it as a dress. I think the fabric is pretty interesting, and I would be, you know, excited to report back and kind of see if I get more wears and use out of this as two separate pieces. All right, last make, I promise. Yeah, it was a busy week and weekend. So here you have it. I made this half circle skirt in April, I believe, or like end of March of this year, and I absolutely love it. I picked up this fabric at Joann Fabrics some time ago. I've had it in my stash for a while. It's a sateen fabric, and it's just so gorgeous. Now, this is the skirt that I had initially used the fabric fuse on, broke some needles, broke a little bit of my spirit. It took it with it. And I noticed after wearing it, I think like twice or three times, the zipper completely got stuck on me. And I think it probably was a multitude of things, but what I noticed when I was taking it out was all of that gluey gunk stuff probably got on it and just damaged it. I couldn't lower it, and then it was ripped up the middle. It just had to go. So I removed it. And something that I had noticed once I made this skirt initially was that the back center seam, this motif didn't line up. And it broke my spirit like this much. It did. Because I don't know where my mind must have been in that moment when I was cutting this out or putting it together, right? Student loan debt, the price of gas, the war in the world, you know, just so many things my mind must have been on, but it wasn't focused on trying to get this correct. So it was just so off. Like, the pattern was so off. Very noticeable to me. I tried to, you know, put it behind me because it is behind me. But since I had this moment where I could potentially fix it, I was like, Fatmata, just do what needs to be done. It was initially French seamed, and I just cut off, just cut it off, okay? Had to let that go. And then furthermore, I was trying to then measure out how I could match the pattern a little bit more. So I was very, very mindful. Like, I put the pins in to make sure it aligned, flipped it over to the right side. Are you aligned? Are you kind of aligned? Just a little bit. And then I proceeded to sew, and in the end I just went ahead and serged the ends there and then ironed it flat. It was just the easier way to go about this. I did not do the soft waistband elastic. It had already, I initially had sewn this with like a proper waistband, actually using the fabric here that's in the Butterick dress that is now a skirt and top. So it's that same like black wood grain material that I used as a waistband, and I just decided to keep it. Now I'm much happier with the placement there. Listen, it's not perfection, but trust me, it's so much better than it was. So I am happy. I'm glad that I went through the added steps to go ahead and do that, because it's a skirt I'm going to be really proud of. And again, this is the season for this skirt, so I'm really happy to have it back in my closet and not in bags, just waiting to be fixed up. I learned so much from my week and weekend of fixing, finishing, and finessing things that have been in my to mend pile, and it's been so motivating, and I'm excited that I'm getting these projects done, and I'm looking forward to just bringing more things into the sewing room that could use a little zhuzhing up, you know what I mean, that are just waiting for that additional special touch. Because look at how productive it makes you feel. Like I got like, I don't know, did I show you like 10 things? And that was between Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Lots of stuff made up. It's great. All right, so let's look ahead. So as we look ahead, first things first, I want to get to the things that are cut out and awaiting me. And I've been holding off, I think, on making Simplicity 9190. I'm excited about it, but I'm nervous about it. But I'm going to let the excitement win. It is made out of this gorgeous tapestry fabric. And one of the things that I did this weekend while I was doing all of the things was I went ahead and serged every single piece. I serged around every single piece. Because this is a tapestry fabric, it is woven and it frays like nobody's business. It frays like someone is paying it to do so. And I just knew that in order for me to just hit the ground running and actually be able to start sewing, it would be really helpful for me to have everything already serged so I can just make my way through the project. I am going to, I believe, just sew it with the lightweight lining. I did ask for your feedback on that. Thank you to everyone who left a comment. Thank you so much. I'm still getting through responses and stuff like that, but I did see a couple of you mention just go ahead with just the lining. Someone did mention fleece. Someone also mentioned doing something like duck canvas or something else that's not as fluffy as fleece. So I might also, there's still time, obviously. This thing is still in pieces. I don't know if I'm going to do the welt pocket. I'm a little bit nervous given the weight of the fabric. Like, do I want to do that? Is there a way that I can switch that over and make it a side seam pocket? I have things to figure out with that make, which is why I think I've been putting it off. But, well, no, that's not why I've been putting it off. I've been doing other things. Anyway, now is the time, and I'm really excited to finally get to it. From there, we're going to work on McCall's 7476 View E. I will begin with the dark brown version of this. Hopefully you've seen these if you've watched any of my recent videos, but the dark brown one here at the bottom is a wool knit fabric. The tan is a ribbing, and I lost again fabric chicken and am going to be using a woven fabric in the same color as the facing pieces that I need, but I think beginning with the brown is going to give me the knowledge about how to sew up this pattern that I need to be confident to move forward in those next steps. I also, while I was at Joann picking up those invisible zippers, went ahead and got this tan bias binding, which is the same color as the ribbing, just in case I needed it. I don't know how sewing up that project is gonna go, so I just went ahead and picked that up just so I had it. And I want to make my son a little jacket that he can wear like in school, in class, because it's getting really cold. He wears uniform and he has a lot of short sleeve uniform shirts. And I just want him to have a sweater or a layering piece that he will be allowed to wear in school, in class. And I'm a rule follower, so I don't want to just put him in anything. They want it to be navy, so I'm going to make him a navy one. I pulled out Simplicity 9391, and I was reading, like I took the kids to the park today and just brought this pattern with me and was reading the instructions. It seems quite simple. Let me tell you what I want to make it out of. I have this navy baby cord fabric. Can you see the whales? It's like a micro cord. Love that for us. And I think I want to line it with this. It is a micro fleece fabric from Joann Fabrics. It's in their athleisure wear section. And I saw it in the last chance section at Joann's when I went. And I was just looking for zippers. Didn't find anything in the remnants, but I did see this. And it feels incredible. If you have a Joann near you, can you just go? I'm going to pop in what the item looks like here. Go to the athleisure section. Find this fabric in any of the color. Just touch it, please, and report back. Because I have not felt anything like this. It feels incredible. I want to make him jeggings out of this. I want to make like almost like stirrups, just short of being stockings, y'all. I want something that he could wear and layer under his uniform trousers. I want my daughter to have stuff out of this. I got 2 yards of it. It was $7.50 or something, $7.50 with the 60% off that it was because it's in the last chance section. Anyway, I believe that's how much I got per yard, $7.50 per yard. And I'm really excited. So I'm thinking this on the outer and then put this on the inside so that it's soft and cozy. I don't think I want to put the hood on it because it's something I want him to wear in class. I don't want him to wear a hood in class. So I am thinking about just trying to do like a ribbed collar on it or use the stretchy fabric as the collar. That's my thought. I also picked up these 2 separating zippers with those sorts of projects in mind for him. Yeah. Something that I started doing last week, 2 weeks ago. Do you all remember when I bought those feathers? Well, I started making little feather plumes, y'all. Because when I think about how I want to use the feathers in whatever garment I choose to make with it, I don't think I want like a strip of feathers. When I've looked at the garments that I'm inspired by that have ostrich feathers on them, it's not a strip. That just, I think it cheapens the look just a little bit. What it is like individual rolled plumes that just have like a few feathers rolled together, okay? And they're just strategically placed all throughout, okay? So here I have a party of plumes, and I have just been, you know, taking my time and rolling these out. It is a process. It is a process. It's not a fast one. So it's just a slow and steady thing. I figured if I have the plumes ready to go whenever inspiration strikes to like make the thing, and I think I know what the thing is, but I'll hold off on that. I don't necessarily have an event that I'm trying to, you know, pick it out for. If I make it in time, I could wear it for Thanksgiving. But I just wanted to let y'all know something is happening with the feathers. I'm just making plumes. All right. The fall sewing plans will continue. This past week was definitely a real boost in my sojo because so much has gotten done. And that means that I have some really great new additions to my fall and winter wardrobe, which I'm ready to style. I have been failing at that November wear your clothes in November challenge that's over on Instagram. I just can't be bothered to be on Instagram, and I keep forgetting to take a photo of my makes, and the house has been a mess, so I didn't know like where to stand to take a photo. And then sometimes when I'm at work, I just forget. Work has been busy. I don't have time to sit and take photos of myself. Anyway, so I would love to, but we'll see. This video is extremely long. I hope that I'm able to edit it down so that it's not as long for you. But hopefully you've enjoyed seeing what I've been up to in the sewing room and joining me. And I hope to see you soon with some additional makes. Please comment down below what was your favorite refashion or fix from today. I know I showed you a lot of stuff. Please let me know what was your favorite. And if you've made any of these patterns that I was like working on, have worked on in the past and was trying to rehabilitate this weekend, please let me know. I love to know if you love any of them, if any are your favorite. How is your fall sewing going? All the things. My apologies that my response time is lagging I know. Your comments bring me so much joy, and I apologize for the delay there, but please do let me know how you are and how you're getting on with your sewing. I will be in the comments very soon. I hope. Things are going to slow down, but they've been all over the place. So, that being said, stay creative, my friends. Bye-bye.